My advice would probably be trust your instinct and trust yourself. And the other piece of advice is take some risk. Sometimes best laid plans, if you follow them 100%, you might miss an amazing opportunity. And be open to what those amazing opportunities are.
Welcome to Symplicity Conversations, the podcast where we explore the people, stories, and experiences that shape leadership, business, and community. Today, we're joined by Kelly Springer, Chief Executive Officer and President at Metal Flow Corporation. Kelly is a respected leader, community advocate, and someone I've had the privilege of serving alongside through Inform's West Michigan Regional Council way back in the day. And together, we've really shared a lot of conversations about leadership, growth, supporting women in business, and really building stronger communities. We're going to talk about Kelly's journey, lessons learned along the way, and power of community. We're also going to talk a little bit about what does leadership look like in today's world. Kelly, welcome to Symplicity Conversations. I'm just really excited to have you here.
Thank you, Catherine. I'm excited to be here. I've listened to this podcast, and so it's exciting for me to actually be here with you today.
Thank you so much. I know Doug keeps giving me updates. I think we've been downloaded in like 50 countries now. And it's like, wow, that's just mind boggling how much, we stretch out. But yeah, it's been pretty fun. It's been a great experience. But we're going to start with our Symplicity Insights today. This is our quote of the day. I like to kind of leave people with a nugget. So today, I love this one. Robert Ingersoll gives us this quote: "We rise by lifting others." And doesn't that sound fitting for us, Kelly, as being so involved in Inform? And that's exactly what Inform does, the mission to help, women lead and succeed. And that's where we really got to know each other all those years ago.
Time certainly has gone by quickly. It's hard to believe that it's been the amount of time has gone by, the number of years has gone by so fast.
Yeah, it really, really has. I started my business in 2007 and I got involved in Inform in 2009. And I think it was by 2011 or 12 that I was on the regional council. And that's where I really got to know you. And then we ended up being chair and co-chair. And I was kind of always watching and just so impressed by your leadership and how well you handled yourself in meetings. And I have to say that you gave me advice one time that really has stuck with me. We were talking and you had said, because your background's being, CFO and working with huge accounting firms, you said, "Catherine, with your business, pay yourself first." To which I've never listened to you, but but it was, you have these little nuggets that people give you, and it's like it's just has these lasting impressions that you can hear those voices throughout your career. And you were one of those that, as I watched you, it might have been because of, as I got involved in Inform and I had this goal to be on the state board, but I was doing my time at the regional council right behind you, just kind of watching your career grow. And so it's been an impactful thing for me. So I'm super excited to have you here.
Well, I appreciate the kind words. I think sometimes people confuse networking with community and they think that they're the same. And I see them very differently. And if you go to an event and go into it with the idea that you're going to just network or make those connections, those connections in a network look different than if you go and you're looking to build that community around you that can help you build and grow your business. And I think that's what you did with Inforum, and it's why it's served your business so well so many years later.
It really has. And I remember probably about 10 years ago, we were creating some videos for some events and I was interviewed on what did Inforum mean to me, because you can find Inforum at myinforum.org. And it's a Michigan association, but it's there's 7,000 women that were there to help lead and succeed. But, I was recording this video and they said, what does Inform mean to you? And I kind of looked at the person and went, well, Inform has both professionally and personally enriched my lives because some of the people that I've met have truly become friends through Inform. The people that I know I can call, and if I'm struggling with something, I can call and they can help me through and have really become friends. And I think that you're right describing that. I haven't heard that before, to say networking and community, but you're 100% right that it is a community and in forum. And even in West Michigan for us, no matter what group that we are involved in, we were just involved with Leading Ladies where we showed up and just the people that you run into, it's like, you're right. We're there. We're usually there in support of something. How can we help? And I always say when you're a giver, you receive things.
100% of the time, even when you aren't looking to receive something. It always works out that way, and I think that ties back into leadership.
For sure. And, being able to um, mentor other people and be a mentee, y- it doesn't matter what stage of your career, you're going to learn something. Especially we've said this um, through mentor programs. Sometimes the mentor learns more than the mentee, in my opinion. I know that's been my experience.
Yes, I'm currently involved in Forum's Manufacturing Next mentorship program, and every single time I have the opportunity to meet with one of the mentees, whether it's in a group setting or individually, I leave there inspired, encouraged. I've learned something. They have interesting skills, great backgrounds, and it's inspiring. And it's one of the things that I think makes you learn, take away, and potentially even change your leadership style with an early in career um, team member that you may be working with on a day to day basis based on the interaction that you have with one of the mentees. So if you're concerned or listen to something in the media and you're worried about the next generation of leaders, meet with someone in a mentee situation, whether it's within your organization or without, through Inforum, through other organizations. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. People who sign up for those types of programs, who are building those leadership skills, who are reaching out, always a key leadership lesson that's going to come from an opportunity to spend time with them.
I agree. And one thing that I've really admired about you is how intentional you are with your leadership and supporting others. You're really particular about taking a seat on a board or supporting an organization, even when you show up. And I remember when I was early in my networking with Inforum, I would go to lots of events and I'd look at it and go, what do you mean you don't have time to go to all these events? I used to think that. And now that I'm in that spot of, my goodness, I just can't show up to everything. I have to be particular about what I show up to, because there's just not enough time in the day. So, as you think about that, where do you think that passion for leadership really started with your career?
I go back and I look back and think about the leaders I was exposed to early in career, and quite honestly, the good ones and the bad ones. And
Yeah, agree.
and the ones that really helped me by saw something in me maybe before I saw something in myself and gave me those stretch opportunities, the opportunity to take on something and learn and grow through it, to cut my chops maybe early and do something that maybe I wasn't quite ready for. And so I think those opportunities is where I started to grow. And I I think that's where, whether it was the opportunity to work with interesting people, I think of it and from a leadership perspective, it's people, it's growth, and then it's the exposure to community. And those are kind of the three key things I think of when it comes to leadership. And for me personally, it started early with those people I was around, and quite honestly, I didn't set out to serve in a leadership role. That was not something that I had on that checklist. that I started with early in career. And so as I think about it, it's those early challenges that I think set me up for success later.
I I understand it, sometimes things find you that you weren't expecting, but I also think you're absolutely right. Um, you don't I think you maybe learn more from the not so strong leaders as you do the strong leaders. I mean, you can look at a really good person that you admire, even if you don't know them, you just know the qualities, and you can look at that and try to emulate those qualities that you like. But the ones it doesn't even have to be a leader. It could be a colleague. It could be a peer. It could be somebody at a conference that you see. If you see behavior that that doesn't feel good, you can take a lesson from that and say, "All right, well, I don't want to do that when I go to a conference, or I don't want to behave like that when I'm an employee." And I think it's really really key um, to be reflecting on that and then asking yourself, how do I behave? Because we all have idiosyncrasies and quirks that happen. Nobody's perfect. We all make mistakes, no matter how hard you try. You say something wrong, or you do something that you kind of look back and go, well, that was not a great choice. So I think it's the point of taking reflection and going, how did I do today? And not beating yourself up if you didn't do the best job. There's a new day. You can show up and be a better person tomorrow, I think. At least that's kind of my perspective, I guess.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it's balance, right? It's balance
yeah.
between self-awareness about
Uh,
where you could improve, but also giving yourself grace that tomorrow is that new day, right? And continuing to do that throughout your career and development. I always say the day will never come when I don't have something new to learn.
Exactly, exactly. Now you've had such an impressive career, and you've become just a well-respected leader in West Michigan. I mean, meeting somebody, if I say Kelly Springer, they're like, "Oh yeah, I know her." It's so cool to see that. Looking back, what were some of the defining moments that really shaped that journey?
Well, I don't necessarily probably spend enough time looking back, if I'm being completely honest, and it's probably where I took some risk. If as I do reflect on it, it's I took a risk to move to Grand Rapids. Number one, I took a risk to leave public accounting and do something and join one of my clients here at Flow. And I took another risk when I chose to leave the comfort of the CFO seat to move into the CEO seat. And so each time you take some of those risks, I think it's where you step outside the comfort zone of where you, as a leader, feel you have to have all the answers. And I think that's a leadership trait that sometimes it's a trap, if you will, that you fall into as a leader, thinking you have to have all of the answers. And I certainly don't feel that way, but, um, so for me, those were key turning points, pivotal points in my journey, and not necessarily tied just to the leadership journey, but tied to me personally and professionally, and at each of those pivotal points, as I reflect back on them, they were really about the people that I surrounded myself with, the people that I had on my team, in my corner, giving me great counsel, the skills that they encouraged me with. And I think back on that, and that truly is what it's like to have people in your corner. And many times I refer to it as a personal board of directors, folks who
Mhm.
give me great counsel, and that's personally and professionally. And I like to think about that in terms of providing that to someone else when they go through those types of decision making points in their career and in their personal lives.
In so many of my podcasts, I interview a lot of people from around the world. And I would say that's the number one thing that people say about their career is you have to have um, connections because you've got to bounce ideas, you've got to get perspective. This is not just a you do it all by yourself. You'll never do it all by yourself. And you need a place to go to just ask questions and try to change your perspective because that's where you can find that growth for sure.
Absolutely. And I think if you don't have that, you can also be misled by your personal bias. We all have it. And and that is a dangerous place to sit as a leader.
Yeah, I totally agree. We have to be, there's easy decisions in business and there's hard decisions. And a lot of times I say to myself, and I know I've got a hard decision, oh, simplicity it depends on me to make this hard decision. And a lot of times I feel better after I've done it. It's like there's the anticipation and the of having to make a difficult decision. A lot of times it's like, nope, done, move on. I feel better. Um, so so sometimes ripping the band-aid off and getting through the decision is just what you need to do and then communicate through it, you know.
And don't you think indecision is equally as hard?
What's
Sometimes
worse,
living without making or having the courage to make a decision, that's an equally difficult space to be in and difficult for those in an organization. Sometimes the lack of making a decision is just as hard as sitting in that space of unwilling to make the tough decision, I think is a really tough place for an organization and the people around you to be.
I agree. In our industry, there's actually a statistic that 42% of the people don't make a decision. And that costs tons and tons of dollars. It's better to make a wrong decision and learn something that will get you to the right decision versus just not making a decision. I do see it in technology all the time. Leadership really looks glamorous from the outside, but there's a lot of challenges that come with it. It's funny because I was at a conference this week and last night we flew in and there were storms coming in and there was, are we really going to get home? And I had one of those land at 5:15 and be on stage at 6:45 kind of nights where it's like, ooh, are we going to really get into town? And then this is after being at a conference, which you're exhausted. And it's like, some people say, well, how do you do it? Well, you just do. But I'm curious, what has been the most important leadership lesson you've learned along the way when you've had to make those seemingly, oh, travel is so glamorous. But when you get down to it, it's like, I want to sleep in my bed and I'm exhausted.
Because so many times in an organization, there are roles, right? I sit in a seat that no one else sits in. And there are other roles in our organization that one individual sits in that no one else sits in. And so I like to say we have to just trust the organization. We have to trust those who sit in those seats and trust that we trust them to do whatever it takes to do that role. And I I I find that each role can have I think of it from the standpoint of I can feel lonely in my role,
Yeah.
and it can't feel glamorous, and at times it can feel difficult, and whenever I start to go down that path, I think, "Who else in our organization feels that in their role?" Because they're the only person who does that. And we have certain roles that they're the only person, right? In our or whole organization, they're the only person who maybe schedules that one area or they handle our quality certifications. And I sometimes anytime I start to feel, oh, nobody understands what it's like to sit in this seat, I say, okay, stop. What other roles do we have? And they're the only person who does it. So if I feel this way, they must feel that way. And it's a reminder that every organization has roles like that. And yes, it's not glamorous, but it's a part of my job. And we have lots of in manufacturing, right? There are lots of non-glamorous, um, repetitive tasks that we're required to do to maintain our quality, to meet the level of zero defects that's required. And so I always catch myself and say, okay, there's there's other tasks that are similar to the way I'm feeling. I need to be empathetic to those roles and what they require, and they're required to meet the expectations of our customer. And so that's my go-to. Every single time I'm starting to say, "Okay, I was here to meet with a third shift team member," or "I'm tired." I just try and catch myself and put myself in the shoes of some other team member that we have it's different. Their role's different than mine, but it's got some commonalities that that relate. And um, it takes everybody. It takes everybody on our team to get to the end goal, which is meeting the expectations of our customer. So if I can focus on that, that seems to help me. It's my go-to. And it's it's having some of that self-awareness, I think, and that has really worked for me because otherwise, of late, that's been a huge challenge, because travel these days can be extremely difficult, and I feel like it's been that way for the last 5 or 6 years, or I've just got really bad luck.
There's that too. Depending on which flight you get on or what provider at that time. But yeah, you're right. We've been talking a lot about value um, in our roles here, and all of us bring a certain value, and we can't deliver the end product without everybody putting their piece in. And I think it's important. There's this top down, like, oh, they're in the top position, but that can be the heaviest because if somebody doesn't do the job, I'm the last. I'm just going to have to pick that up and do that if there's nobody else. So I think understanding, and I always try to tell people on the podcast, try to understand your value, and what are your goals, and if you want to um, get a future promotion, then start thinking about how can you become more valuable? What things can you volunteer for in the organization? Because if your organization is doing really well because everybody has that little thought of how can we do a little bit more, then that just helps the whole gang. You're always going to have some people that are, you know, the naysayers and don't give anything extra. But if you be one of those individuals that's like, what can we do to delight our clients and make sure that we're delivering the best? That can only do good.
Well, and I think today, in an ever-changing business environment that's very competitive no matter what industry you're in, you have to be able to differentiate what you're providing, whether that's a service, whether that's a product, especially in business to business. And I just think that if you don't focus on those differentiators, then you're just going to blend in with everyone else. And I think that mindset has to feel different. And it's so competitive, and it's in our space, it's globally competitive. So we think about that regularly and have to really stay focused and intentional about it. From a leadership perspective, we have to reinforce that message.
Yeah, I was just at a conference this week about customer experience and AI, of course. AI is at every conference in technology. But customer experience, and one of the comments was, the only differentiator in business, no matter what business, is customer experience, right? And I'm not talking about the we give world-class customer experience. It's really, how did you make that customer feel? And will they come back because they like doing business? People do business with people they like. Now, there's some businesses out there where you just maybe buy something off Amazon and you don't know anybody there. But there's something that makes it easy. So in smaller businesses, in communities like this, we do know our customers and we do have those conversations. And I say everybody in my company is a salesperson, meaning they touch the customer, so they have to present who we are. I don't know how you feel about that in your business, but y- for you to continue to provide excellent service, you got to be thinking about everybody's contributing to that.
Yeah, for us, it's a little different in that our product, we're not shipping and selling our product to a customer that exists in West Michigan today. So we don't ship any product to a customer in West Michigan, but our end product ends up in the automotive space on vehicles that are in West Michigan. So we talk about it from that level of perspective when we're talking to team members with a zero defect mindset, safety critical components that go on vehicles that we drive, that our families drive. And so we
Yeah.
use that to emphasize the quality component of that. But when we talk about the customer experience, we talk about it from the standpoint of when we have to communicate something that's unique or difficult. We're in the metal space, right? Metal Flow Corporation. We are a deep draw metal stamper, and so we have been subject to the Section 232 steel tariffs. And when those came to be, and we knew from a business perspective, when you're talking about a 50% tariff on steel that's coming into the United States from Canada on some of our product, and that was a circumstance where we needed to pass those costs on to our customer. That was not a pick up the phone and call our customer or send an email. That was get on a plane and fly to our customer and sit across the table and have a direct, professional, candid conversation about what that meant to the cost of their product. And for us, we've been able to pass through those steel tariff conversations and those costs to our customers. And I think that goes back to exactly what you're referring to, Catherine, which is the relationships. And we could do that. It wasn't always fun and it wasn't always easy, but because we had those customer relationships and could define how to do it, why we needed to do it, be fair and as a partner in those conversations, but that's a perfect example of, that customer experience on something that no one wanted to be sitting there talking about. It wasn't ideal. It wasn't like it was a great new product offering. It's the same product that now has a new cost component. But I think because we were doing it in a way that was professional, that was transparent, that was viewed as we want to be a partner with you in this and let's have this conversation, I think that spoke to the customer experience that we had given them prior to having to have what was a challenging conversation. And it can't just be only in the good times. You have to be able to have that in the difficult times as well. And so that's an example that I think we've leaned into and shared openly with all of our team members on why the work that we do every single day in service to our customers matters when we have to go to them for something that's maybe more challenging.
I also think it's all of your leadership skills to know I can't send an email. I can't just make a phone call. I need to show up and I need to have them feel this from you, not just hear it, but I feel like they need to I mean, you're trying to keep your business running and employing people. It's important for you to to convey that message clearly. And I think all your training up to that point had you make those decisions of I need to go in person. I need to take that effort. Um, even though it's a hard conversation to have.
Yeah, I think that's where, you think of leadership in general, right? And sometimes you don't have control. And that's where having lack of control on things you can't control, we've all been there, right? There's things outside our control. And that's where you have to lean into being very clear in your messaging and consistent. And that's where that trust that you've built all along the way starts to pay dividends. And that happens and is true for so many different things.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why I always tell people don't think about going to a conference or an event, um, like "Well, I don't like the topic. I'm not going to go." I'm like, "Don't, you're going to meet somebody, you're going to hear something, you're going to learn something. And it might be the seed that's sown that might help you 2 years in the future. But you really want to engage in that communication with other people because somebody might have said something that made you stop and go, this needs to be done in person. And, you just absorb it over your career to know how to approach different areas, I think.
Well, it's the benefit of experience, the good and the bad.
Yeah. Uh, I can I can appreciate that for sure. Now, you were recognized as Crane's Grand Rapids Businesswoman of Influence in 2025. What does that recognition mean to you, and how do you reflect on your journey and relationships that helped you get there?
Well, I certainly don't do what I do for any type of recognition. I don't think anyone who's extremely focused on that. That's not why they do what they do every single day. For me, it's very gratitude focused. For me, the period of reflection is on my team. I have a fantastic team at Metal Flow. I'm very proud of the work that we do every single day, and just am extremely grateful for the work that I get to do alongside our team members. And um, again, super proud of what we do to follow uh, a business in automotive that, at times can challenge you to make decisions and push you to stand your ground from an ethical perspective. And we stand up to that. And I sleep very well at night knowing that we make honest, ethical decisions every single day. And so I feel very proud of the team that we have here. And for me, I reflect back on relationships. We know some fantastic women who have supported both of our careers through our Inforum relationships, and they're deep connections. They're people that we both know that if we had any kind of issue, a question, anytime, day or night, we could pick up the phone and call them, and they would take our call, meet with us. And so for me, it really was a period of gratitude, but it also shifts to a period of responsibility, and a responsibility to lift others and to encourage others and be reflective on making sure that others have some of the same opportunities that I feel I've been given.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's so many people that we would have to list that we've interacted with and helped. My career and as I've watched yours, you're right. It's I try to focus on the gratitude of being involved and in some of those and figuring out ways that I can give back, at different stages of your career. When you get to where we are, it's like, okay, how can I help others or younger women in their career and give them the advice that they might need or just share in our experiences because it's different. Navigating a career today is different than when we were young in our career. There's also a challenge of struggling with balancing, ambition, family, career, and personal growth. How have you managed to navigate those competing priorities over the years?
Well, I can't say that I'm an expert at it for sure. We all have challenges when it comes to that. So, um, I don't think it's a steady state. I don't think of balance as a steady state. I like to think of it as I have focus on what I'm attempting to do at the time I'm attempting to do it. And I think of it as presence. I've long said that when I'm at work and I'm present and I'm focused on what my task is here. And when I was at home and a mom of young children, I was focused on being a mom and focused on what I needed to do to be successful as a mom of three young children. And I still have that when I'm home. I try and stay present, and I'm a proud empty nester now, and my husband Randy and I have are enjoying the grandparent stage, which is wonderful. But it's a for me, it's about presence versus balance, and recognizing that in a demanding career, it's not a traditional my day starts at 8 and it ends at 5. I squeeze in things before and after that and always have. And so I think of it not as a steady state, but being intentional with my time and prioritizing things that are important, but never setting myself up with an expectation that I'm never going to miss anything. I think that's an unreasonable expectation to set for yourself. And I also think you have to, as I like to say, give yourself grace. Sometimes you're not going to be able to do everything, and you have to be realistic about that, and not think that this concept of you can do all things and be all things, and uh, you have to have that concept and be realistic no matter what you're attempting to accomplish.
I totally agree. I feel the same way. It ebbs and flows, doesn't it? I think sometimes when we have these busy season where in April, it seems like we have a lot of conferences and commitments that we have to go through, and it just seems like a 2-week period that it's just slammed. And the same with like September, is tech week and then art prize, and we're an art prize venue, so for about 3 weeks we're just going as an organization. um you have to know when those are coming and plan for them and being intentional. And then what can you do to, um, you know, be be easy on your team too? Like again, that village. It takes a village. We try to share the duties of who's going to be here on our prize duty, right? Um, but it, you're going to miss events. You're going to drop the ball. You're going to miss a flight and be late and miss somebody's softball game, right? Uh, I think FaceTime makes it easier. FaceTime me. I was at a concert during this conference with Nick Jonas, and my daughter's a big fan, but she's a nurse, and so I FaceTimed her in, and she was so thrilled, and her fellow nurses were so thrilled to see that, and it was just one of those moments where I went, "Hey, I can bring her into this, even if it's for just 2 minutes." Um, but she loved it, and finding those opportunities to kind of bring the 2 worlds together.
Absolutely. I think early in my career too, when my children were young, I had realistic expectations, right? I didn't expect my career goals to progress as quickly as maybe they would have if I wasn't splitting my time with a family. And I worked a tailored work arrangement when my children were young. I didn't work a 40 plus hour work week. And so as my career goals, I was realistic. I didn't expect to advance in my career at the same rate that I would have if I didn't have a younger family. And I think you have to be realistic, and that was fine with me. I was prioritizing my career at the time that I could also prioritize my family. And I have no regrets about that in any way. And so I I can do more. You're at a different stage of life. And so you have to make sure that you're focused on the priorities for the stage of life that you're in. And then for me, it's about the presence that you have when you're in the mode that you're in.
So if you could sit down with the younger version of Kelly at the start of your career, what advice would you give her?
My advice would probably be trust your instinct and trust yourself sooner than you did. I have become very confident in and some of it comes from experience, but it took me longer than it maybe should have to really trust my ability to make some of those career decisions. I looked maybe too much at the advice and opinion of others early in my career. And um, an example would be early in career, okay, well, maybe you don't want to do this kind of work because, and I fill it in. But boy, I really kind of thought I liked that kind of work when I was in public accounting. And ultimately, as I got more seasoned, I said, you know what, I really do like that kind of work, AKA manufacturing. And I advocated for myself and said, I really want to work in the manufacturing space, which ultimately has led me to where I am today. But I think I knew it earlier, but I didn't use my voice and I listened to the opinion of others who said, "Well, this might be better for you." And I think that would be advice I would give to my earlier and younger self earlier in career is, my intuition and what I thought I wanted. And the other piece of advice is t- take some risk. I came out of college with here was my plan, well laid, mapped out, charted, and sometimes best laid plans, if you follow them 100%, you might miss an amazing opportunity. And be open to what those amazing opportunities are. The world is changing so fast that there are career paths out there and amazing business opportunities, career opportunities, technology opportunities, as you well know, that we can't even think of that will be available 15, 20 years from now. And I I think if you stick head down focused and don't give yourself that peripheral line of sight, you can miss a great opportunity. So I could have never predicted in my 20s that I would be sitting in the seat I sit in today. And what a missed opportunity that would have been if I hadn't taken a few risks along the way.
Yeah, if you pulled out that plan now going, "Oh, where did it have me at this stage?" Yeah, definitely. I think being open to whatever, and it doesn't matter if you fail. I always say fail forward. You can always get a different job, if it's not
Mhm.
what you expected. I think when people start college, average of 3 to 4 different majors that's switched during college is because are you really supposed to know when you're early 20s what you're going to do for the rest of your life? I don't know. I mean, I started my business when I was 39 and I was pushed off the cliff and I didn't know that I was going to become a business owner. And yeah, I think be open to those and you know what does it matter if it doesn't work out? You tried. Those are the if you try those risks, you'll not regret it.
Well, and I think a lot of younger professionals today, they haven't had the experience of failure. So many of them, right? They were great students in high school. They went to great colleges. They've been successful. And I had an opportunity to speak on campus at Michigan State at the College of Business here recently. And a piece of advice that I gave to some very successful academic college students was take a hobby that you know you're not going to be good at. Pick up a hobby that, so you can practice failing fast and fail forward and just try something that you are not going to be successful at out of the gate so that you get that skill at failing at something. And I think it will help you in your business career over the next 3 to 5 years because so many of these students coming out of today's business schools, they just haven't had that experience. They've been very, very successful. And that's fantastic. And they're going to have these great careers, but they have had no exposure to any type of failure. And I want them to have that experience because that's what the real world is like. And so
Yeah, that's where you learn the most from failures. Do you study the successes as much to say, why were we successful? You study the failures thoroughly, back and over and over and over. And like, what did I do? And how can I not repeat that? So that's the best advice is go fail at something.
find it, find a hobby.
So looking ahead, what excites you most about the future for yourself, your community, the next generation of leaders?
Well, I mentioned one piece of it, and that sure is, very excited about our next generation of leaders. I think their exposure to technology, Catherine, you're in the space, you know how exciting it is in that space today. Their adaptability to it, their efficiency in using it, it's going to change how we do business. And I think that's the generation of leaders that is going to take us through this next conversion of technology and the next conversion within industry. And so I'm very excited about that and all the benefits that will come from it, specifically in manufacturing. I also th I also think that, they have a level of optimism that is exciting, and, I'm, very excited to see that level of optimism, and I do think that they recognize that, they have a strong commitment, to developing and growing, and I think that's a key success factor for a future leader, and so I'm very excited about that. From a West Michigan perspective, I think we're gonna keep, the moniker of West Michigan nice. I think we're gonna continue to have that, but I'd love to have it also transition to the West Michigan Collab because West Michigan collaborates on so many different levels at a different pace than most other places. And I think that's a business superpower for the companies that do business here. And
It's so true.
it is across industries. It is, you know, a a game changer for how we can grow and develop, whether you're a small, mid sized business, whether you're a publicly traded company, the collaborations that you see in West Michigan, I think position us differently than so many other places globally. And so I know we talk about it, but I think West Michigan Collab is something that we should all get behind, and that positions us for the future in a completely different mindset than so many other places.
You're 100% right, Kelly. And I think that is a great way to close out our conversation today is that become part of that community. If you're not part of the community or your community, wherever you are, um, reach out and figure out how you can get yourself plugged in because you need that, you need that collaboration, right? We're so fortunate here in West Michigan. It's just a gem of incredible companies. We've got the right place that's doing some amazing things with our tech council and becoming, just such a tech hub here. But it's the people without a doubt. So thank you so much for joining us today. I've always appreciated our conversations, and you're just so full of purpose and relationship and just helping others succeed. I know that some of the young people listening today are going to get a lot out of your conversation.
Well, I always enjoy our time together,
Yeah,
Catherine. Thank you.
absolutely. It's been awesome. And I was trying to think it's been gosh, about 16, 17 years that we've known each other. That's pretty amazing. To our listeners, thank you for joining us for another episode of Simplicity Conversations. We hope today's conversation inspires you to invest in your own growth, strengthen your relationships, and find ways to lift others up along the way. Be sure to subscribe, share this episode, and join us next time as we continue bringing you conversations with remarkable leaders like Kelly. We're making a difference in the community and beyond. Follow us on LinkedIn and visit thesimplepodcast.com for more. Thanks for listening.